And here there is a call for industry cooperation, and also there are regulatory opportunities in a positive sense.
Hello, and welcome to this four-part masterclass series on recent developments in correspondent banking, brought to you by The Banker magazine. My name is Joy Macknight, and I'm Transaction Banking and Technology Editor at The Banker. I'm joined by Christian Westerhaus, Global Co-Head of Client Products and Solutions at Deutsche Bank. Welcome, Christian. And Wim Raymaekers, Global Head of Banking Market at Swift. Thanks for joining us, Wim. During this masterclass series, we're going to be looking at the current landscape in correspondent banking, some of the disruptions occurring in this space, the role of that technology is playing. And in the final installment, we'll explore the idea of the next generation of correspondent banking. So Christian, Wim, thank you so much for joining us today. It's very interesting. There was a lot of talk at Sibos in Singapore this year about how the correspondent banking model is dead. And that rumor crops up quite a few times. But of course, correspondent banking does play quite an important role within the global economy. Christian, can you tell us a little bit about your take on the debate?
For us in Deutsche Bank Global Transaction Banking, correspondent banking obviously is a core business, for the reason that it supports international trade and commerce with flows between the continents, for us mainly, but not only, in US dollars and euros, and in terms of speed, transparency, risk, and compliance. Of course, there are many drivers that we look into in order to improve this service further and invest in it. If I look into the area of compliance, probably this is the most prominent area at the moment. And here there is a call for industry cooperation, and also there are regulatory opportunities in a positive sense. For industry cooperation, it's, for example, about the KYC registries that we need to drive to further adoption. For the regulators is to support those developments and help with the quality of those registries. For example, to audit the contents in a home country background from a regulatory point of view.
Okay, and Wim, obviously at Swift has a unique position in the fact that it sits between all the banks in terms of their transaction. What are you seeing in terms of the correspondent banking and how important it is to the global economy?
It is quite important, and I'd like to build on the first point that Christian made. Every day, day in, day out, we see millions of payments on the SWIFT network. And actually that is to settle trade, south-south trade. But actually when you look at the payments, that's done north-north by global transaction banks like Deutsche Bank, who have correspondent banking relationships. And that is because today, still, most of the international trade is still done in dollars. So that's why you see very strong relationships between correspondent banks in order to drive that global trade, built on the foundation that banks provide in terms of resiliency, compliance, and in terms of security to enable that global trade.
Okay, but the correspondent banking model is under a bit of pressure at the moment. There's been a lot of talk about banks de-risking, pulling out of certain markets. The World Bank released a report earlier this year, and that more or less said that almost half of emerging markets and developing economies are seeing a reduction in terms of correspondent banking services. So more recently, the Committee on Payments and Market Infrastructures released a consultative report. Christian, can you give us some high-level insight into terms and in some of the issues that the CPMI highlighted in that report?
Yes. Obviously, from my point of view, the regulators are interested in a well-functioning correspondent banking. And here there is a call for collaboration and also regulatory support in this. This concerns the KYC registries, so to bring them to real life so that they support day-to-day business from a static data point of view, so that banks can really rely on this and regulators can support this in auditing the contents. Then it is about the data formats, where the industry globally should decide upon what is the well-structured, data-richer content that contributes to better compliance overall. Then it is a question about how do you identify parties, which is about, for example, the legal entity identifier, the LEI, where our position is, yes, this should be supported, yet you should combine it with industry types of business types so that this information gets even more meaningful. So there is a number of aspects in it where the industry and the regulators really have to take the right decision on top of the risk framework which every bank has to install themselves with the right risk practices.
Okay, great. Because you talked a little bit about some of the measures that are being taken, and I know SWIFT launched its KYC registry earlier in this year. The Deutsche Bank was one of the first members, announced in June. Wim, can you tell me a little bit about the take-up in terms of the KYC registry?
Certainly, the take-up I think has been really great, thanks to the support of global transaction banks. We launched the directory in December 2014. And I think today about 2,000 entities have registered their data in the registry. And it's not just a database with loose information and documents, it's really structured information. And we have a dedicated team at SWIFT that verifies and validates that information so that banks can really use it as the basis for their correspondent banking relationships.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. The next video in the series will be looking at the fintech explosion and what impact that's having on correspondent banking. Thank you very much again.